There is an epidemic failure within
Epidemics before, haven't you?
Got ourselves an epidemic going on out there.
He is run on epidemics. Where you been?
The epidemic begins.
An epidemic of blindness is broken out.
That we use for a cholera epidemic or
That happens a month later during a flu epidemic.
Stray cats there in London. It's an epidemic.
It's an epidemic.
There will be an epidemic?
maybe
The epidemic of 30?
By then, the disease could spread into a worldwide epidemic.
Started.
Of the problem and the controversial nature of the Vietnam War.
there is an epidemic failure within the game to understand what is really happening.
Winded mule.
I've seen such epidemics before, haven't you?
How's your health?
Excellent, as you very
All day in this cab. We got ourselves an epidemic going on out there. You know, people eating too much, drinking.
Our country.
Why, this whole country is run on epidemics. Where you been? Epidemics, a big business prize fixing crooked teeth.
The epidemic begins.
Jack is loyal to this company.
We're in a state of crisis. An epidemic of blindness is broken out, provisionally known as the white sickness.
Institute the same kind of emergency procedures that we use for a cholera epidemic or Legionnaire's disease, that kind of.
What do you want me to do?
Doctor said it was pneumonia because it happened some months later during a flu epidemic. The doctors told me it was pneumonia.
Dan,
What? No.
do you know how many stray cats there are in London? It's an epidemic.
Well, he's got a name. It's Bob. And
Let's get married.
It's an epidemic.
I'm serious.
You're only a boy.
Bad guy stays, we leave.
But there will be an epidemic?
Maybe. But with any luck, I'll be gone by then.
Up again. You're old enough to remember the epidemic of 30? Or are you so old you've forgotten it?
it was just postponed 48 hours. By then, the disease could spread into a worldwide epidemic. It's because of rats.
Or a cemetery. I don't know how the epidemic started. All I know is that some people, on the 7th night.
These facts, plus the epidemic scope of the problem and the controversial nature of the Vietnam War, led American authorities to wonder whether
disease. There's an epidemic in the Nethers. It's the best we know about it.
Cars from bad dealers. A special report on what's looking like an epidemic.
And we're on a break, guys.
Disease?
Yeah, epidemic. A plague epidemic.
What kind of disease?
Plague, a plague epidemic.
Nobody's gonna.
Information, correct? Not yet. Yeah, she also has cut off contact. Cutting off contact with you is reaching epidemic proportions.
They're still waiting for you upstairs.
Right?
Going up all over.
It's starting to. They began considering epidemic protocols in Europe last night. Also in Japan.
Was crumbling all around you. You've got simultaneous epidemics of obesity and starvation. Explain that one.
Law enforcement and medical agencies to discuss an apparent epidemic of paranoid schizophrenia.
Just an unbelievably horrible
threatening 1/3 of the world's population. The epidemic is being contained, but intelligence would.
The stresses of hypothermia, epidemic, and radiation fall heavily on the very young.
Withdrew funding for AIDS research because they blamed the epidemic on gay lifestyles.
Right? Because some of them would.
Yeah, wow. The Times is calling it a potential epidemic. Paul.
Wow, she was cut in two. You think it's an epidemic like the flu?
Inside her that turns men into animals.
Ellen, this is an epidemic. The third leading cause of death among.
Throughout Saigon and the Far East is leading to an epidemic of heroin addiction among U.S. soldiers.
Years ago, the homicide rate in this country had reached epidemic proportions. It seemed that only a miracle could